And now I can get started with the very first leaves. So I can finish this one first and this one, and then work my way towards the bottom, because if I'm going to fill this in all with pastels now, you have a chance of smudging this leaf or this leaf. So I just want to slowly start doing the top leaves first and then work my way downwards. I think that's the best way to do it. So that's really fun, because now we get to work with the very bright green toned colored pencils. First I'm going around the leaves a bit with this brown tone, the 635, just to make sure that the edges are nice and tight before we get started. I went a little bit over the edges right here, so this leaf isn't too tight, but let's tighten that up. Okay, so let's get some colors for the leaves. Okay, so let's pick a few greens. So here I have a very bright green, grass green, 171. And we have a more yellowish green. So this is earth green yellowish, 168. Then a darker green, more on the bluish side. So this is permanent green, 266. And then a bit of a darker green. So that's chromium green opaque 174, and this one's more toned down as well. And then to make the green more vibrant, I probably will mix it in with a tiny bit of yellow tones, and I think also some blue, just to give more depth to the green. So these are probably the colors that I'm going to start with. So let's get started with this one first. So I've never really worked with these greens on pastel mats, so I'm not sure yet how they are going to respond to the pastel mats. So I'm really curious actually. Let's see what this is going to look like. So I'm going to start with the grass green and put down a base layer. So you can see that the left side of this leaf is very green, very bright green. So let's outline the left with the grass green and the tip as well, and just do a light base layer of that. A little bit on the right side as well. Okay, light base layer. And then let's mix some more greens with that. So let's go in with the earth green yellowish 186, which is the more like yellow, darker green. I'm following the veins of the leaves, so those vertical lines you can see through the center, following those a little bit. Just going to try to put in as many different colors as I can. Actually, in the center I see more of a cool green. So now I'm going to get permanent green, the 266, and to darken up the center a little bit. And this will give the leaf the more bluish tone. Or not blue, like cool. And then we have the other one, like falling on top of that a little, and then coming out on the right. This one is a little darker, so I'm going to get started with the permanent green for this. Alright, so these colors look pretty nice. I'm going to mix in a little bit of the grass green on top of my base layer of permanent green. Also to get rid of the paper texture a bit more. And highlight the edges and the tip. Okay, so that's the base. So now we can add some more colors. I'm going to add some yellow to the tips because I see some yellow. So I'm going to add the dark Naples ochre, 184 that is. Let's add that to the tip. I can add a bit more pressure here. Little on the edges. Then maybe do a tiny bit of blue, like dark indigo. Add some shadow to the leaves. So it's very important to not only use greens, but rather use blues for shadows. And then I can have a highlight color for brightening up some of the highlights of the leaves. So I'm going to take ivory. Highlight the edge. Okay, so those are the first leaves. Not too hard to add. The color looks really nice as well. So let's just continue this way. Now let's do that one. So this leaf is a little darker, a bit more toned. I see more blue in it as well. So I'm actually going to get started. Let's do the chromium green opaque for the top area. So that is 174. This is actually not a very blue green. It's more like a yellow green. Just for the very start of it. Switching to permanent green for the more bluish tint to it. Okay, so I'm going to add dark indigo now as well at the base of the leaf, where the shadows are. And on this bottom side, to disconnect it a little bit more from the chin, because I want it to be above the chin, really. So not stuck to the chin. Okay, tiny bit of highlights with grass green on the center mainly, so right here. And then the tip I'm going to color in with sky blue actually, because I see a slight blue tone. And also the blue really fits well with the background, as there are both like blue toned greens and yellow toned greens in the background. So I need to make sure that it comes back as well in these leaves right here. And then we can see some markings on the leaves, some darker markings, so I'm adding those as well for some nice extra detail. And now I do want to highlight the edges a little bit with the ivory to make sure that this leaf sticks out from the chin. Then I also need a little bit of black to darken up the shadows at the base of the leaf. Also to make it fit with the rest of the mouth area where I also added black. All right, so that is leaf number 2. So I'm just going to work around a little bit more. I need more detail here on the fur. So now we finished these leaves. I can work on this area a little bit more. So I'm going back with the 770. So now we can also highlight this part in the fur, so the very edge here. And I'm going to do that with, shall I do that with colored pencil or with pastels? Basically, I can do both. I'm going to add a tiny bit of violet on the edge right here, over the background as well. Create some of the lighter clumps of fur sticking out. Okay, and then I could highlight with blue because that fits very well with the undertone of 770, but I think that will be too much blue right now for this area, so rather I'm going to add violet, or no, this is ivory for the highlights in the fur. And this is the polychromos, so I'm going to highlight and do details with polychromos. And basically the only reason for that is because I want this drawing to be more of a colored pencil drawing than a pastel drawing. But basically you could use either one of them. Doing the highlights with pastels is also very suitable. So I'm just adding some hairs, like some springy hairs, make him nice and fluffy. And also on the rest of the fur. So I'm just adding some individual hairs, and I don't have to press. So actually with no pressure at all, I'm adding these hairs. Alright, so let's continue outlining these leaves. So then we can fill in these. So first we have to outline the little twigs. Doing that again with my 770 and make sure it's very sharp. And I'd rather keep my little twigs a little bit too wide. Rather keep them too wide than make them really extremely small right from the start, because you can always make them thinner if you want them thinner, but making them wider again is a lot more difficult. Here we have a large one, and then we have some little like grass and twigs here in the corner, but I'm leaving those out because I think those are distracting. So I am drawing in this big one because that's quite important. Okay. And this fur is still black right here on the shoulder. And then it goes like up until right there. So this is where the arm is. And then here it transitions into the red fur. So actually I don't have to outline this part with the dark color because that's going to look weird. I'll have to outline it with more reddish tone. I can do this little one. I really have to look closely because I lost the outlines a little bit, so I have to do them freehand, so that's why it's taking me so long. I have to concentrate. Then let's do the rest of the outlining with, let's just do brown, quite a neutral color. Right, so lightly outlining that, and then we have another leaf there. Okay, so then I can fill in all the dark parts in between the leaves and the twigs. Back in with 770. Let's look at the fur direction here. Actually, it goes that way, so let's fill it in this way. So this is all black. And I'm just putting down a light base layer. And then here's where the transition into the red fur will be. Okay, so let's take that up until here and then do the area slightly below the twigs here. So not all the way down yet, just up until right here. Finish that. And then I'll do these leaves just to make sure that I don't smudge anything right here. I want to leave this open for now. Okay, up until there. And then for this little part, I'm going to do a light base layer of brown, the 635, just a little bit. Tiny bit of 640 on top of that, and this I also add on top of the blue tone. And then we're going to make sure that the color of the red fur fits very well with this fur. A little bit of that on top of the blue tone, just to make it a bit more brownish looking. Actually, this edge is quite blue, so let's just keep that blue, or paint grades actually. Okay, just lightly do a bit of blending carefully around the leaves. Then I'm going to do black on top of that to darken it up. And that's the black pastel, so not the colored pencil. There's some serious thunder outside. Don't know if you can hear it. Pretty cozy actually. I'm just working on filling this all up with black. Trying to not push because I don't want to lose the colors underneath. Going all around these twigs and maybe blend this in a tiny little bit. Though I want to do as little blending as possible. Now I do have a nice area filled up. So now I can start with filling up all these twigs and leaves. So let's do that. Alright, so let's get started with these leaves. I probably need to get some more green tones in as well. I'm going to be adding cobalt green 158 and chrome oxide green 278 with my mix of greens. You can see that these leaves and this one are a little bit in shadow, so those need to be darker than this one. Actually, I want maybe the base of this one a little bit darker. Let's add some cobalt green on that. Really nice bluish green. Alright, so let's get going. I'm going to outline the edge of this bottom one. There's a tiny speck of black in between. Even more detailed. Okay, so I'm going to fill in the base with this one. With the cobalt green, just lightly. Following the veiny lines in the leaf. And this one actually overlaps that one, which creates a shadow. So let's just start blocking in all the dark shadows that I see. And then this one overlaps this one. Okay, I'm going to add chrome oxide green to this edge, which is really dark, so I'm going to add that on top. A little bit in here. Okay, so then to fill up a base layer, I am going to get a permanent green. So that is 266. And I can just go over this, go over my previous greens, and do a base layer on these leaves. Taking it slowly. Okay, and then the tips of these pencils or of these leaves are a little lighter, so I'm going to switch to grass green now. So that's 171 and fill in the tips. Let's tighten the outline. Still with grass green. And now, to prevent that this gets too bright green, I am going to add some yellow in. Let's do some light yellow ochre, 183, and I'm going to just glaze this on top. And also in the tip. So that's a bit of earth green yellowish that I'm adding. Now I feel that I have to darken up the shadow. So I'm adding a bit more chrome oxide green now. So I'm looking at the shape of that shadow. You can see this diagonal line right here, so I'm going to recreate that. Okay, so now I'm just going to add a few more layers with permanent green, just to get rid of the paper texture a little bit more. Tiny bit of black on this edge, not too much, right there. And then finally I'm going to do a tiny bit of highlighting with ivory, just on the edges of this leaf, just make it pop out more. So this part is catching more light, so this can have a bit more highlights. Also this tip right here. Right. So then we have some nice lighting on this leaf. Create some texture, highlighting the veins as well. Alright, so those are two of those leaves. Let's build in these twigs. So these are very, very thin. And they do look a bit greenish, but I also see some brown in them. And a bit of red. And a bit of yellow. So I think I need to mix together quite a few different colors. So I definitely see green, the earth green yellowish, the 168. So I'm going to get that one. And then some brown, walnut brown, 177, and pink as a highlight color, I feel. Yep. Maybe also some ivory. And a tiny bit of the light yellow ochre. So I think we'll have to mix together these colors to get the right color for the twigs. So let's start with that. Alright, getting started with the earth green yellowish 168, and I'm going to put down a very thin layer of this, focusing on the edges, because of course we need to get that rounded shape to it. We don't want it to look flat, so we need the darkest colors on the sides, and then I need to highlight the center, but it's so small that it's pretty hard. This one looks more green, so I'm going to add a bit more green in here. Also, I need to be careful to not mix in the black with it from the surroundings. Actually, I'm definitely not going to copy all this. I'm going to add a tiny bit of the walnut brown along the side. Definitely the underneath. We have the most shadow underneath the twigs where there's not much sun hitting. We have some little detail here and there, some little knots. Sketching those out. This looks a bit darker, this area right here. Darkening that up. Okay, so then I'm going to add a tiny bit of the yellow color on the center, the light yellow ochre 183. Okay, so now I feel that this one needs more green, so I'm adding some of the light green, 171. This one, and here I need some more green, I feel. So now I can just change the colors. Okay, and then I can use the beige red as a highlight color, so I can highlight the centers of these twigs. Make sure it's very sharp though. Alright, so now I can keep on changing the colors. I feel now I'm losing a bit of the green, so I'm going to bring some green back. The earth green yellowish. So I just want enough color variation on these twigs, enough mix between yellow and green. And then a tiny bit of ivory for the very brightest highlight just at the top of the twigs. Okay, so that's little twigs for now. We can always come back to them. Let's do these ones now. So basically just in the same way as I've done the other leaves, but we also have to finish this tiny piece of fur in between the leaves. So I'm going to get another color that I can do the reddish fur with, or maybe I can do with a colored pencil. Yeah, let's do that. I'm always forgetting that I can also just add the colored pencil on top of the pastel. So here we got the 640. I also have to outline a bit better, so I'm going back to brown. Tighten up this outline. I'm going to get Venetian red, 190, if I remember that right. Yep. Add that on top to create the more reddish tone. And then take that outwards. On top of the background a little bit. Maybe a tiny bit of sanguine, the 188, for the more orange color. Not being too tidy with this, as it's just a little piece of fur. And then I'm going to get beige red and do some sticking out hairs with that. Okay, so now we can do these leaves. So let's start again with, I feel that the permanent green is a good base tone for this one. This leaf is not extremely light, but it's not extremely dark either. And then the tip is lighter again. Tiny bit of light green on the tip. Bit of yellow. And I'm going to highlight the tip of this with ivory. So I'm just going a little bit faster now because it's basically the same technique as with the other ones. And now I can keep on darkening the shadows and highlighting the highlights until I feel that this looks deep enough. So I'm adding some darker green again. That's the chrome oxide green 178 here. So it really looks like this one is behind this one. And then I can take the permanent green, for instance, to do the blending and to get rid of the paper texture. Okay, so then we have a very dark leaf here in front. So I'm going to get that in with the dark green. Actually, I think I have to get this one, the chromium green opaque. I think that one's better. Put this base layer in. And this one sticks to this little twiggy. You really have to look which leaf is attached to where. Tiny bit of cobalt green, deep cobalt green 158 on top of this to get more of the bluish tone in there. And then let's do the base layer of this behind one. You can see that the edge is super light. So let's fill that in right away with ivory. Let's get that lighting in. This one catches a lot of light. I think I will give this one the light green base layer. At least here on the tip. Taking that in. Almost there. Just a few leaves to finish now. Oh, and the whiskers, we don't have to forget those. A little bit of permanent green. Also permanent green for this front one. Let's add a tiny bit of yellow to the top of the leaf and this little edge right here. Put a bit more color in. Tiny bit of black on this one. Just to sharpen it, make it a bit darker, not too much. All right, moving on to this one. So this one we still have to outline a little bit. So let's take the 640 again. And do this area of the body with that. We can add detail to this later, but I just want to have this outlined. Okay, so this one looks more like the permanent green again, so let's do a base layer of that. So that was the color 266. tiny bit of cobalt green just here at the base. And then light green, highlighting the edges a little bit. And a little bit of yellow on top of that again. Also on the edges to highlight those. So that's the dark Naples ochre 184. So I have two yellows, the 184 and the 183. This one's slightly darker. Doesn't really matter which one you use, but as a highlight color I prefer the lightest one. And then I'm going to do some highlights with ivory. Just here on the tip. And the center line is also a little bit lighter. Okay, so we are getting there. So now we just have this little leaf in the corner to finish and this big one. And also this piece of fur. Let's do this piece of fur first. Oh, and there's a little twig that we also have to finish. So this twig end, it looks kind of pink. Let's do cinnamon for that as a base tone. Oh, and we have some smaller ones as well. So that's a 189. These ones look more green, so I'm going to go back to earth green yellowish for this one and that one. Okay, and then I'm going to use the walnut brown as a shadow color. And then highlighting with ivory. Alright, so let's do this fur. So I need to take the 770 down even more. So I'm going all around this leaf now. Looking at the shape of the arm, so it goes back a little. Ignoring all the leaves and twigs that are in front of this, that are out of focus. We're not drawing those in. And 640 for the rest of the fur. Alright, so I just want a smooth transition between these two colors for now. Then later I'm going to draw in some of the details. And I do need to get a more reddish pastel tone to mix that in with the fur. So let's go for 655. Mix that in. And then the details I'll do with colored pencil, but I want the base, the color of the fur to be right in the base. Alright, so this needs to be lots darker. So let's get some black and darken this all up. Going to keep working in the fur direction. So that's the black pastel, by the way, because I want a nice deep black, and the polychromos is just going to give a glare that I don't want. And I might even get the Creed color black, that's even more black. tiny bit of brown in the red fur for some more depth. And filling up the paper. Okay, so filling up the layers, I'm going back to 770 because I don't want to put in more black, but I do want to fill up the paper a bit more. Okay, so now everything's covered up, so I can do a tiny bit of blending, following the fur direction. All right. Okay, so I am going to get the Cretacolor. So this is Cretacolor Black Chalk number 2. Cretacolor Black. A really nice pastel pencil, which is super extremely black. And I'm just going to use it in the corner right here. Okay, so that's really nice. I can do some really nice dark fur texture in here. I'm going to try to not add too much of this, but just want to create some more shadow in between the hairs. And blend it in carefully, just by tapping a little bit. Then let's do the detail on here later on. So let's finish this first. Back to the 770. So this is just one large area of black. I do want to do a little more detail in it than I see in the reference photo, following the rounded shape of the arm a little bit as well. Okay, so I'm going to layer some 640 on top of this. Create some more depth in the color. Just quickly. And then I'm going to layer black on top of this. Just a light layer of black, not too much. Alright, so a little bit more 770 just to fill up the paper a bit more, so we can blend this all out nicely. A little bit of extra for 640. We're almost there, just the final areas to finish. And blending it out. Okay, and then I can do some fur texture with the created color black. So now I have to look at where is that arm going. So here we have the darkest part, the chest, the area in between the arms. So I feel like the fur is going like downwards a little. So I'm creating random strokes with spaces in between, and that's my fur. Fur is rather long as well. I hope you can see that on camera. This one is really recommend to try getting if you don't have this one, the Creative Color Black Pastel Pencil. You can do the same just with the black Stabilo one. This one just gives a little bit more depth. And just tap that in. Make this soft so I don't see any harsh lines, because I want the main focus to be on the head. So I don't want any harshness here, just soft fur. Alright, so let's do this leaf now. And this leaf is actually a little bit different when it comes to coloring than these ones, because you can see a glare here on the leaf and that glare looks bluish. So I'm going to mix in sky blue with my layers, but I am going to start off with a green base layer first. I'm going for, let's do the permanent green again, the 266. Start on this base here. Alright, Here I will keep it very light because I don't want too much green on here. I just want a tiny light base layer of green. The edge can have a little more green. A little bit more dark green at the base of the leaves. I'm going to get chrome oxide green to 78. Darken up this area where there's not much light hitting. Alright, and then I maybe am going to put down a layer of gray and then go over with blue. I think the blue on its own might be too vibrant, so I'm going in with a cool gray too. Just put down a little bit of this. And now I'm going to add blue. Sky blue 146. Okay, so make that blend with the green. Right, so we really want that light on there. I do feel like it can have some more green again, so I'm going back in with green and I'll keep layering until I find that the values are correct. So I'm going over again with permanent green. You can have that streakiness in there, so you can see the center line, which is a little darker. A little bit more dark green. So I want a real difference between this base here, which is dark, and then this blue. I want a nice contrast there. Little light green to highlight this edge. Right, so now we're getting that glare on there by increasing the darkness here. So that's nice. I do see some details, some white spots I see. I think I want to add even more blue. Oh, and the tip as well. I want to add a yellow tip. So let's add that. Alright, so I'm going to add some highlights. The light spots that I see as well. So I'm adding ivory. Almost looks like it's wet. It's highlighting this leaf here and there. All right. Little touch of dark indigo. I feel like this leaf can use a little bit more color. Touch of dark indigo and maybe a touch of violet. So this leaf comes forwards a lot, so I feel like this one has to be really detailed, otherwise it's just going to look weird. Alright, so now it has a nice glare to it. So now, finishing this little twig piece that I forgot. Bit of brown. Not spending too much time on that. Alright, that's it for the leaves. We still have this one to finish, so let's finish that one. Then we're almost done. So this one I'm going to build up in the same way as this one. It looked more pinkish. So the twig I'm going to fill in with cinnamon. Then brown on the side to give it depth. So that's 177, the walnut brown polychromos. Tiny bit of yellow in the center, not too much. And highlighting the center with ivory. And that's basically it. And then just like this one, this leaf is also very glary, but this one has a bright glare on it. So I do need a tiny bit of green, but not too much. So that's permanent green, but I need to outline the bottom more because now it just fades in the background. So I'm going to get chromium green opaque 174 and outline the back of this a little more. Actually, that's not dark enough, so I need to get in with dark indigo. Okay, so then the rest I can fill in with a base layer of sky blue. Okay, so now I can do the brightest highlights with ivory. Okay, so just put down the lights in the right place. Make sure that the darks are dark enough, and then you get that really nice wet or sunlit effect. And that is it basically for the leaves. Now the only thing I want to do to the fur now is add some more hairs on this edge, making sure this is nice and smooth. Then adding some hair on this edge of the arm. And then adding some hairs on the arm right here. So let's do the back first. So I think I'm going to add a little bit of sanguine. So now I'm going to continue with the polychromos, no pastels anymore. A little bit of sanguine on this fur. Create some extra color in it. And then the edge I'm going to do with cinnamon. And then on top of that some beige red, but I'm starting with cinnamon. This doesn't have to be very obvious. Just want a nice soft furry edge. And I can also use this to add some fur texture in the rest of the fur as well. Taking beige red 132 and highlighting some of the hairs. I always feel like the Stabilos, they lack some of the bright, dark red colors. So I feel I have to get some of that red in with the polychromos. Some Venetian red maybe. Okay, and then let's highlight the fur on the arm. And I think I'm going to do that with violet. Let's see if this is light enough. I don't think so. Just add some violet streaks just to add some more color in the fur. Really like the look of violet in dark fur. You can even add some little hairs with it here. In between the dark strokes. It's not very obvious, but it doesn't have to be. Okay, and then I'm going to do sky blue for the real lightest hairs on the edge of the shoulder. Trying to be random with it. The fur is quite long, so I can make my strokes quite long as well. It's really getting late. I'm trying to finish this all in one evening. So it's getting late. I almost can't talk anymore. Right, so I'm not pushing much because I don't want these to be the brightest hairs yet. Let's do some on here as well. Just some flimsy flyaway hairs. And then with ivory, to contrast the cool of the blue, I'm going to highlight some hairs even more. And I can do this with super light pressure, because I've built up the layers so lightly with very light pressure as well. So with no effort at all, I can just draw these in. I do have to make sure that this corner here is dark enough. So let's add some more black. Alright, so that is basically it. Now we still have to do the whiskers, which are very important. So let's do the whiskers on the left side of the face first. Here we've put down pastel. And this is all pastel, so actually these whiskers and those from the chin can all be with pastels, and then they will be extra opaque. And then these ones I think I'll have to do with color pencil, and actually these ones right here, these long ones, look more yellowish as well, so I think I'll have to put those in with ivory with the polychromos. So let's do that first. Ivory is 103, by the way. Carefully place down my little piece of paper, and in quick determined strokes I'm going to put in these whiskers. Start with the longest one So I have my pencil very sharp and I'm going to guide it across the paper. Going to switch to white now. The white polychromos. Do some below that. You can see, when you look at these whiskers closely, you can see that they are cut off and that the ends of them are actually pretty wide. So they aren't like coming down to a small tip. Yeah, this one is, but these ones aren't. So I'm going to go over with my pencil and just thicken the ends slightly. Alright, so these ones right here, which are overlapping the black fur, I can do with a white pastel. So I'm going to do that with the white pit pastel. You can also do it with the white Stabilo one. My white Stabilo one broke, so I need to use the white pit. These will probably be a little thicker. Okay, so that's going pretty well. And now we need to do the whiskers on the other side of the face. So this is going to be a little harder because there is just a lot of already light areas there. So maybe I need to darken up slightly to make sure that the whiskers stand out better. I'm going to do some glazing with dark indigo, but not too much. And then I'll just have to try to make these whiskers here stand out. I'm getting my white. Okay, so these ones are definitely a lot harder. Also, I feel like I didn't really put in these dots on the muzzle well, so I think I need to just put some more time in these dots. And I also see some black whiskers, so let's put those in as well. Actually, they don't look really black, they look more of a dark gray, so I'm going to do them with Payne's Gray. Really sharp. So I see a little whisker right here. Take some guts to just go over your drawing like this. Tiny bit of black on some of these. Alright, so let's zoom out. Let's see what this looks like. So this is the stage in which we can do like adjustments, add more color glazes if I want to. Also, I'm definitely going to put in fireflies, so let's do that as well. I want yellow fireflies, so I'm starting with 205. As always, I'm just placing down dots. Or circles. Vary a bit in the size. Smooth out the edge of the dots by going over them a little bit with your finger. And then with the white pastel, I'll place a tiny dot in the center. And this is optional. I just like to do fireflies. Maybe then I feel, as I now put more yellow in the background, I want some of that yellow reflecting onto the panda. So, picking my dark Naples ochre, and I'm going to do a tiny bit of glazing on the edge of the face. Bit on the ear. Oh, and I also needed to darken up this stripe, so I'm going to get a little, let's do some caput mortuum. I can now darken up in between the whiskers. Okay, so I think we're done. So this one took quite a long time, but I'm very happy with how it turned out. I hope you like it too. Very fun piece to do. So I did have to split it up. I did have to split it up in 4 parts because it became a little bit too time consuming, this leaf area. I didn't expect it to take so much time, but I'm really happy with the outcome. Let me know what you think of it, and of course I want to see your results, so definitely show them in the Facebook group. And yeah, then I want to thank you very much for watching. Thank you for the support, and suggestions are always welcome. And then I'll see you in the next tutorial. And of course I'll post a scan as well of the end result of all the colors, accurate colors, on Patreon as well, so you can see what it exactly turned out like. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.